So I have a quick question for you. Use all your knowledge and skill and wisdom, observation. Have a picture I need you to help me identify. Rack your brains. Use Google if you need to. Need to know if you know who this is. Nobody knows. I have not heard anything yet. Oh, wow. There we go. So my daughter, that is her text tone. When she's texting me, the Bluey song comes up. So that is her favorite. She works at a camp, works with middle schoolers. They had 3 Rachels. So they go, okay, one of you can keep your name. The other 2 of you have to do something different. Do something so that we can identify which Rachel we're talking about. So instead of doing Rachel F or Rachel something, she said, no, my name's Chili. So across the country, she is known as Chili. Does anybody know, okay, how many have seen Bluey? How many have not seen Bluey? Whew. Okay, I encourage you to find a Bluey and watch it. Not that it's anything scriptural, but you can find some stuff in there. Does anybody know the purpose of Bluey? Have you heard the story of why Bluey exists? Okay. It presents itself like a cartoon for toddlers or preschoolers, early elementary. Right? Do they love it? They do. That is not the biggest fan base for Bluey. The biggest fan base for Bluey is adults. They're the fanatics. It was created for adults. Comes out of Australia, and they realized that the parents in their country were having issues. They did not know how to interact with their kids. And they came up with this idea of creating something for the kids that would also, okay, when our kids were young, I can tell you every word, every line of Balto that was ever created from the movie, because my oldest, that was his movie. I know it all. My middle, he didn't quite land on a movie. My daughter, she went to sleep every night to Monsters, Inc. I can tell you everything about that. We end up hearing and seeing the things that they're watching, and they knew if they created for the kids, the adults would end up watching. They would end up learning how to play with their kids, how to interact, how to deal with them when you're frustrated at them, what it's like when they're continually asking over and over, can we do this, can we do this, can we do this, can we do this? Fine, we'll do this. They hit some real life issues for the parents, and the kids end up learning some real life issues and how to deal with them. It's really interesting. But it's also kind of sad to realize you have a whole generation that does not know how to interact or to parent their kids. It's kind of sobering. So, back at the turn of the century in Maryland, so a lady named Edith. She had kids. She had 8 kids. Can anybody top that one? Anybody come close to that one? Anybody want to come close to that one? We've had friends that have had 12 kids. She had 8 kids. So her sanity was going to the grocery store. Okay? She had older kids that could watch the younger kids, and occasionally she'd get a few that would farm off to a neighbor where they're having with their friends. And one day, she was able to go to the grocery store, came home to silence. She hit the door, she heard nothing. She opened the door, heard nothing. Put the groceries on the counter, still heard nothing. She walked into the living room, and there's a circle of 5 of her youngest kids circled up, sitting on the floor, and their attention was focused on something in the middle of the floor. And she could not see what it was. And the closer she got, she could see the smiles, the joy on the kids' faces as they are just enthralled with whatever it is that's there. And as she peered over, she saw 5 baby skunks. Now, you can imagine what's going through her mind. She panicked. And the words out of her mouth she regretted, because she went, "Run!" They each picked up a skunk and ran throughout the house in different directions. There's a lot that we can learn from this illustration. Because there are times our kids will get involved with something that we know is not for their benefit. And yet it is the light of their life, of their existence. And how we respond when we realize what's going on makes a difference on the outcome. Had she not panicked and talked to them calmly, the situation would have been very different for the weeks to come. We know our kids will get involved with things that are not for their benefit. That will stick with them for a while. They may not look good, they may not smell good. It was actually here we learned a system to go out in the community and tell others about Christ. And we would knock on doors. And our teenagers became our best witnesses. And they end up leading adults on teams to go out and tell others about Christ. But the one thing we had to instill in all of us was no matter what conversation you encountered with them, you cannot let it take you by surprise. You cannot. You can hear the strangest things coming out of people's mouths on what they believe. And you cannot show any expression on your face. About a mile down the road, we had a guy who worshiped the sun in a way I've never heard before, and we did our best not to lose it because it was so off the wall. But there are times when we encounter something, we've got to keep our composure because it's going to make the difference. Our purpose is to bring them up even when they're in the mess, because we're concerned about what they become in the process. Right? Genesis 1:27. There we go. So God created, I'm drawing a blank and I know this one by heart. So God created man in his own image. He created him in the image of God. He created them male and female. We are uniquely created in God's image. That kid that is driving you up the wall was created in God's image. That kid whose face lights up when they see you is created in God's image. They reflect his character because he's put part of himself, part of his character, part of his nature into that little one. And our job is always to see God's image in them and help them to see that they're created in his image. And their goal is to reflect his image. Our job is to build their character that would honor and show God. Right? That's not an easy task. That takes work, right? That takes time. That takes a lot of planning. But if we see ourselves in God's image, it becomes easier to see God's image in them. Has anybody ever heard of Rick Rescorla? It's an interesting fellow. Started out in the British Army. Was a good soldier, special forces for them. Went through a lot of training. Got out of the military, decided his career was not done. A friend of his encouraged him that his military career was not done, that he should join the Army in the United States. That he would become part of the 2nd Battalion, the 7th Cavalry Regiment, and the 1st Cavalry Division during the Vietnam War. Now, any war buffs may have already picked up what the 7th Cavalry is. Anybody? Okay. Yeah, it became the helicopter division. The troops that would fly in with the helicopters. Brand new tactic they've never done before. They could drop the troops in, pull them out very quickly. What's interesting is this same number had not been used, and I'm drawing a lot of blanks this afternoon. Soldier fighting the Indians was massacred at Little Bighorn. Custer, thank you, gosh. This was Custer's division. They reactivated it. Was not a good thing. The colonel in charge was named Hal Moore. It's the first major battle of the Vietnam War for our troops. Dropped them into a place, did not realize they dropped them right next to the main base of the Viet Cong. They were highly outnumbered. And even the helicopters coming in and out, it was a severe battle. We Were Soldiers is the movie they created out of it. Rick was one of the sergeants for one of the units. He was not mentioned in the movie, but these guys that came out of it were really heroes because what they did and how they survived till they were able to be pulled out and to have backup support come in. It's an incredible story. But this is not the biggest part of Rick's life, because Rick took his GI Bill and went to college. Got a degree in law, started security, became a security specialist for a major firm in New York City. And then that firm was bought out by Morgan Stanley. Their offices were based in the World Trade Center. In 1993, he realized the first attack that they were not prepared. So he made plans, and he said, you all have to get out of this building. It is not a safe place to be. They would not move their offices, of course, because it was the hub of everything financial. So he created plans to evacuate his company and get them out safely wherever the problem may be. Every couple months, they executed those plans so everybody knew what to do, how to do it, and to do it efficiently. He never gave up on that idea of protecting his people. When 9/11 hit, he didn't have to think. There was no panic. His people were prepared. And as they were going down the stairs, they were in the second building. As they're going down the stairs to keep them calm, he started singing Cornish hymns from his British background. And that's all you could hear resonate through the stairwell was his booming voice. He brought his people down. He went back up. He brought people down. He went back up. When that building hit, he goes, everybody's not out. I've got to go back up. He called his wife and says, I've got to go back up. But if I don't make it out, he told her, stop crying. Got to get the people out safely. If something happens to me, I want you to know I've never been happier. You have been my life. And went back up. And the building came down. What creates a person to be this type of individual? What? I don't have an answer. I didn't plan to ask the question. I am looking for an answer. What creates a person like this? There has to be something. I have no knowledge of his history. I don't know if it became from his parents. Other thoughts? What? From God? Part of his training, part of his experience. He's definitely been through stuff. Somebody who knows their purpose. Somebody who has been guided to know what God's created them to become. And they live that life. They live their purpose. And it not only becomes their focus, it becomes who they are. It is their character. It is all that they are. Every instance in his life when things went bad, he cared for people. That doesn't come easy. Our goal is to create our kids that is have the best character that anybody's ever seen, right? We just don't want them to succeed in sports, to have a good living, to have a lot of money, to have a house, cars. We want them to be somebody. Not that they have to do daring deeds and to sacrifice their life for others, but they're living out God's purpose to the fullest, because that is every essence of who they are. That's what I want for my kids. That's what I want for my grandson and the new one that's on the way. I want them to live out their life for God and the life that God has created for them. I'm an introvert. I'm a major introvert. But God needed me to be that introvert because I am one of the best listeners you will ever find. And I deal with people on a one-on-one basis. That's what God's created me to be. My work as a police chaplain, that's exactly what I was created to be, is to help people in time of crisis. Someone that can care, someone that can listen, someone that can understand. Why do I work well with teenagers? Because a lot of them just need somebody to care and somebody to listen. Our job as parents is to help our kids find that. But if we don't get them to plug into the power source, they're not going to become their fullest. If we've got these speakers here that are plugged in, they're of absolutely no use unless they're plugged in and have power. We tested out Tim Hawkins' video the other day. We heard nothing, trying to figure out why it wasn't working. Speakers were not. They were not connected to the power source. If we're not connected to the power source, we don't have the power. It's there, it's at our disposal, it's there for the use. We know what it can do, but if we're not actively plugged into it, and our kids don't see that we're actively plugged into it, and we don't get them to be actively plugged into it, Christ will make no difference in their life. There's a couple that do marriage ministries and work with children. They're called the Rainies. And they tell the story that they came across one time of this construction site. And as these men are building, this one guy, there's three guys, they're laying bricks. And the first guy, go ahead and throw up the first slide for me. First guy is laying brick after brick after brick, and they said, "What are you doing?" "I'm laying a brick. Can't you see that?" One brick after another. You lay the stuff down, you put the brick on, lay the next stuff, stagger them so it holds support. They asked the second guy, he goes, "I'm building the wall." "That's the purpose. I'm building the wall." And the third guy, he says, "I'm building a cathedral." If you understand the purpose of what you're doing and you see the big picture, you see the impact that can be made in the step by step of the little stuff. Everything we're doing with our kids, every moment that we're teaching. I've had some of the best discussion with my boys and my girl about life from some of the movies we watch. And we'll sit and talk for hours afterwards. What about this? Why this? How does it relate back to God? Not doing a spiritual thing, going, why was that why did that impact them so much? What was the real problem? Why did the guys fall for that girl like they did? That was really dumb. We see the big picture of what we're doing. They're a masterpiece that God has created. Not tie your shoes. Tie your shoes. Pick up your toys. We're building a masterpiece in the process. See the big picture for what it is. Part of it is also to help them see who they are and what they can become. Help them dream a big dream, because what God has in store for them is a huge dream. Many kids have no clue. What do you want to do with your life? make money, get married. Okay, that's part of it. There's so much more. There's an investment. Put up the next slide. Okay. See how everything is perfect? That's kind of how we picture it, right? We're working with our kids. They're perfect kids. Everything is going right. Next slide. Okay. Most of us, it feels like this, right? And the next one. Okay, this one has some wear on it, right? What's the difference? Need to see them again? Go back 2. One more. Okay, there's a few better at 1. Next. A few better at 2. Next. What's the difference? What? Some of it's time. What? Okay, some of the mortar's different. Size and shapes of the bricks. Life? What do you mean? Challenges, trials. Okay. I've gone all weekend without doing this. This was a trick question. They're all walls. They're all fulfilling their purpose. Yeah, some of them look a little different, but they're all succeeding. Remember, your kids are going to look different than everybody else's. But if they're succeeding in God's eyes and succeeding in your eyes, they are that special cathedral. We've got to make sure we're not comparing. They're not created to be somebody else. Okay, next slide. Oh, that didn't really come out as well as I thought it would. So this quote from C.S. Lewis: "Since it is so likely that they will meet cruel enemies, let them at least have heard of brave knights, heroic courage. Otherwise, you are making their destiny not brighter, but darker. Sometimes helping them dream. Sometimes helping them have those adventures. Helping them throw on the towel around their neck and running through the house like a superhero. To dream. They're going to face challenges. They need to know that there are stories where good wins, where heroes can be real, that darkness does not last. Not just in play, but in life. And sometimes they'll remember those illustrations. Sometimes I would take my teenagers on mission trips, and sometimes we would go great long distances. With Jessica, her group, we drove 26 hours one time. That was long. But I knew we were going to have another journey, and I knew it was going to be a long one. And so I had these CDs of stories. They're called The Lamplighters. If you have not found the Lamplighter series, I encourage you to find that. They're old stories that have been forgotten, that have been reproduced, rebound in books, and then they made audio dramas of it. And I go, I need something to keep me awake because I know it's going to be a long, late night. And I'm going to be the only driver in that vehicle. The other vehicle has 2 drivers. They get to change out. I don't get to change out. I brought one of those stories called The Hedge of Thorns. And the story was this brother and sister. I'm just giving part of it. I won't tell you the whole thing. they had, walking through places, they always came across this big hedge. And it surrounded, and you couldn't see through it. It was so thick, and it was so tall, you could not. And the boy, it got the best of his curiosity. He needed to see, and they were working together, but the problem was it had these huge thorns in it. And he helped his sister to try to get through, to let her see. And as he pushed hard, and the thorns caught her in the face. And the thorns took her eyes and took her sight. What he come to find out on the other side was a huge valley. It was steep, it was dangerous, and it was just on the other side. The hedge was created to protect, so nobody would fall in and nobody would lose their life. Sometimes there are things for our protection. Perfect story to see sometimes the things we're pushing against are there for our benefits. My teenagers hated me after that drive because it tore their hearts out and they were sobbing hearing the story. But they still heard the message that sometimes God puts things in to protect us for our benefit, and we don't need to fight against it. We're getting ready to close out. Our job is to create, to build. You need to also remember, you need to enjoy every moment. You're building character in them. There come stressful times. You need to make sure that they understand that even the stressful times can be a time of memory and enjoyment. There is a theory out that I've heard quite a bit. It is make memories. No, build character. But enjoy every moment along the way. When we evacuated from here, we went to Snowflake to our associational office, and they opened it up for my family to live in for the week. We took the boys' bicycles, and they rode their bicycles in the parking lot because we knew they needed that break, that enjoyment. Make the most of every opportunity. We took our boys to Knox Berry Farm on vacation. We took very little vacations. We live so far from family. We're from Oklahoma. God moved us on one end of the coast. He moved us on the other end of the coast. We spent most of our vacation traveling back to see family. Went to Knox Berry Farm. Amusement park, designed for their age. Did they love it? Sure. What was the thing they remembered the most? Right outside our room was the vending machine. And after the long day, Dad had stashed away a bunch of quarters. And I spent way too much money getting them a snack out of that vending machine. And they had a ball, and they loved it. And later I had to fess up how much I actually spent on that vending machine. But we made the best of it. I could have said, no. A few years ago, we had a boy that grew up in our home on the weekends. We call him our adopted weekend son. When his dad went to the Gulf War, his mom said he needed a male influence, so she sent him every weekend. Our boys, they were friends. He started martial arts with us. He did Bible drill with us. He thought he was going to make our kids normal because he thought our kids were weird. They were. God used this to impact his life. He's now a youth pastor with an incredible little family. But we were traveling. He was getting married to the girl that God had provided for him, the perfect person that he really needed to balance him out. And it was right after Thanksgiving. So we were traveling on Thanksgiving Day. We were sacrificing a lot. We hit the Loves because we got used to gas stations on the road as much as we travel. And we're taking a few minutes because it was a long road because we were going from Savannah to Pensacola, Florida. It was longer than we had expected. And my son, who's graduated, college age, I don't remember which, he goes, "Dad, look what they've got." And in this counter of all this food, he said, "They've got cheesecake." It's not just cheesecake, it's Cheesecake Factory cheesecake. We're going, "Wow, Love's has that? That's incredible." He goes, "It's $7 though for a slice." I go, "It's Thanksgiving. We can do it." We got some of the most expensive snacks that day at Love's. But that slogan became not just a memory, because when we needed something special, we said, "It's Thanksgiving. It's okay." Because we're making the best of every moment. And sometimes it's okay to go above and beyond. And not just monetarily. We're making the best of every moment. Long car rides, we make the best of every moment. Everything can be an adventure. We were in the airport at Charlotte, coming here, early in the morning. And I look across to the other side of the terminal. And there's this mom with 2 young boys. And she's got her hands out like this. And they're at the other end of the carpet. And when she drops her hands, they come running. And they're screaming. And their faces are lit up because she is killing time. But she's not killing time. She's making the most of the moment. They're enjoying killing time. I don't know how many times they did it. We're investing everything that we do. Think we got one more slide? Or is that it? That's it? Okay, I didn't put that one in. Psalm 78, verses 5 through 7. He established a testimony in Jacob and set up a law in Israel, which he commanded our fathers to teach their children, so that the future generation, children yet to be born, might know they were to rise and tell their children, so that they may put their confidence in God and not forget God's works, but keep his commandments. You're raising future generations. I know you're going to go home and your kids are going to push your buttons. Guarantee it. Because we've had a weekend to kind of focus, relax, let God speak to us. Reality is going to hit us again. But see God's image in them. Help them to become all that God has created them to be. It's tiring. It's work. They're making us better and helping us to be all that God wants us to be as well. It's an exciting time of your life. Allow God to use it. We're going to take just a moment, just kind of a wrap up before we do the giveaway, where you can spend a moment either by yourself or together as a couple in prayer. Take what you've learned. Take what God has been sharing. Commit yourself to him before we exit this place. Or if all that you can do is go, God, I'm going to need your help. Do not leave me or forsake me. So we're going to spend a few moments. Jessica's going to play just a little bit. Spend some time in prayer either by yourself or as a couple. And I'm going to close this out, and then we'll finish out with the raffle.